World number one Aryna Sabalenka is still in the headlines from the WTA season ender in Riyadh after she apparently threw shade towards the champion Elena Rybakina after the final. I'll give my take on some of the mixed reactions to this and discuss the ATP Finals, which has gotten out to a middling start, to say the least. Ciao, mi chiamo Christian Basnight, and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you are notified whenever I post more tennis content. So jumping right into it, after losing to Elena Rybakina 6-3, 7-6 at the WTA Finals, Aryna Sabalenka was understandably very emotional, and after she smashed her racket, shook Rybakina's hand, the camera caught Aryna saying something in frustration, which one fan through lip reading interpreted as "once a year, even a stick shoots." So this apparently is a Russian idiom, which essentially means the same thing as "even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while." And Aryna said the same exact thing, "once a year, even a stick shoots," back in 2023 during the US Open final against Madison Keys after the American bageled her in the opening set. And in my opinion, if Sabalenka was frustrated talking about now this incident with Rybakina, I think Aryna was frustrated that Elena struggled with winning a big title for over 2.5 years, and finally the Kazakhstani woman played some of her best tennis against Sabalenka in this final. So Sabalenka was like, why me? Why does Elena decide to lock in now of all days? But on that note, Rybakina had been playing strong tennis from start to finish this tournament. So I think while I kind of understand her frustration, and of course she was venting after a tight loss, Rybakina had been playing this well for matches leading into this one. So it really shouldn't be a surprise that she continued this form against Sabalenka in the final. But anywho, Aryna did receive a bit of backlash for this moment, and a few of her own fans even called her a poor sport. And others brought up some other incidents with Aryna this year, of course, the Roland Garros press conference thing, saga with Coco Gauff, the Australian Open final where she smashed her racket on court, and then even Aryna threw her racket a little close to the ball kid a few weeks ago in Wuhan during her semifinal loss to Jessica Pegula. I think that Aryna for sure is not the most gracious loser, but I've said this so many times with more people even aside from Aryna, but I think that's fine that players are not the most gracious in defeat. I believe that, honestly speaking, if Aryna were a man, in these instances, she would not be getting anywhere near as much backlash as she is getting. Simple as that. But I think that Miles David makes a good point when he tweeted, "The expectation that a tennis athlete should always take tough losses on the chin and not be upset at themselves or make negative remarks out of frustration is just really inhumane and not normal." And I've always said this, but people just really are not empathetic enough when it comes to athletes, especially when they're in high pressure situations. And personally, again, I don't mind a player speaking their truth. I think it's raw, and I don't believe that everything needs to be all polished up in PR. And it's also not like Sabalenka said this publicly, and it's also not like Aryna said this publicly this time. I mean, it's kind of bad luck that this happened, that the camera happened to catch her at this moment, and really she just can't catch a break. I do think that bad behavior and poor sportsmanship should be called out when it happens, but again, going back to my earlier point, Dino Medvedev, for example, he doesn't get nearly half the flack that Aryna does, and for doing far worse things. But Aryna, she's always been more of a volatile person. I do think that she has still some anger issues to work through, and I do think a lot of the frustration, of course, is stemmed from her subpar finals record. She is 21-19 in finals overall, which is not a great record, being honest, for one of the game's greats. But I do wonder if the criticism that she gets, even more so now, impacts her. I mean, she is a strong woman and she has endured a lot, so maybe she can just brush it off. But to sum things up, I do think that poor sportsmanship should be called out in this case with Sabalenka. I mean, I called her out and said that it was not great sportsmanship what she did after the Roland Garros finals and talking about Coco in that regard. But here in this specific incident, I really don't have a problem with it, I'd say, because it's not like she said it to where mics could hear. A fan lip read it from a moment where she didn't even know she was being filmed. I do think that someone made an interesting comment or tweet that really Aryna only is okay with losing to Iga. Not okay, but Iga's really the main one that she respects and that she finds it somewhat acceptable to lose to. I think there might be some truth to that because really aside from Iga, I think that Sabalenka expects to win every single match that she plays. So it's interesting. But moving on, Aryna might have fallen short in a few big matches this season, but it didn't stop her from making history. She took home $15 million in prize money in 2025, setting a new WTA single season prize money record. This surpasses Serena Williams' $12.3 million record from 2013, where Williams won 2 slams, 5 1000s, and the year-end championships. But focusing now on the men, the ATP Finals are officially underway, and we've witnessed a rather underwhelming start to the tournament. The top seed, Carlos Alcaraz, scored the first win of the event when he defeated Alex de Minaur 7-6, 6-2. The first set of this match was pretty interesting. Carlos started strong and was in full control of the match and led it 4-1, 40 love, but then Carlos started to get a little bit sloppy, and Alex did elevate his level and started winning more of those longer rallies, and he got things back on serve, and the Aussie was in a winning position in the opening set when he led 5-3 in the tiebreak, but he took his foot off the gas pedal a bit, and it also didn't help the Aussie's case that he could not find a first serve to save his life, and really Alcaraz getting the first set freed him up a lot for the second set, and his shot making was really off the charts. Meanwhile, Alex did not have nearly enough firepower to match his opponent, and also de Minaur's serve let him down badly in the second set. It fell off completely. He landed just 30% of his first serves and won just 33% of his first serve points, which is a total recipe for disaster. Now, if Carlos wins his next 2 round-robin matches, he will finish as the year-end world number 1. Now, Taylor Fritz is his next opponent, and the American, I think, will be the biggest threat to Alcaraz maintaining an undefeated round-robin record. Fritz defeated Lorenzo Musetti 6-3, 6-4. It was an impressive match from the American, but it was an odd match, to say the least. In the first set, Lorenzo had 1 more winner than Fritz and committed 2 fewer unforced errors. Yet you can say that he kind of was clearly outplayed by Fritz. And Musetti did have his chances to make this first set at least more competitive than what it was. He had 4 break points in Fritz's second service game of the match, but he could not do anything. And Fritz, he does deserve credit for how well he played. But Lorenzo, on the flip side, he had a tough service game after fumbling those 4 break points, and he missed out on 4 game points himself to ultimately get broken. That was the decisive break for the first set. And Musetti faced multiple break points for 4 of his service games in a row, which just goes to show that Musetti didn't have a great serving day. But Taylor's returning, again, he deserves some credit, Fritz does, because Fritz's returning was some of the best I've ever seen it. He was all on top of Musetti's serve, especially his second serve. And Taylor, meanwhile, he was much more effective on his serve and was rarely tested, as Fritz won 18% more first serve points and 23% more second serve points. From the ground, Fritz was also exceptional. He hit 34 winners to 21 unforced errors. And I think briefly talking about this Alcaraz-Fritz matchup, Carlos leads the head-to-head 4-1, and they've played 3 times this year. Carlos has won 2 of those matches, the Wimbledon semifinals and the Tokyo final, and Taylor's lone win, period, against Carlos came at the Laver Cup this year, which he won pretty decisively in straight sets. Again, it's going to be a tough challenge for Carlos, I think, especially if Fritz comes out and plays like he did against Musetti, but that could be a tough ask just to maintain that level. Plus, Taylor is going to be playing back-to-back matches as he played against Musetti on Monday, and then he has to turn around and play against Carlos Tuesday, and they're the first match on, so I'm wondering if that turnaround might impact the American, but ultimately, just to save time, because the match is coming up in a few hours of me recording this, I'm going to be having Carlos take this one in 3 sets. Now, looking at the board group, Jannik Sinner got his title defense underway with a 7-5, 6-1 victory over Felix Auger-Aliassime. This was a rematch of the Paris final like barely a week ago, which Sinner won much more competitively 4-6. Now, like in that final, Jannik's first serve was just impenetrable, especially in the opening set where the Italian won 21 out of 21 first serve points, which is unbelievable. It's going to be hard to beat Sinner when he's serving that well. And the first set, though, it was still competitive. Felix held his own and kept it neck and neck until the very last game of the opening set, where at 30-15 up, he started grabbing at his calf a little bit, and that kind of indicated an injury, and his movement was greatly impacted, it seemed, in the second set. But really taking nothing away from Jannik still, I think he would have won this match regardless, even if FAA was healthy, but it was disappointing that it finished this way because it had the potential of being another competitive match like we saw in Paris. But FAA's injury does raise concerns for the rest of his tournament, but he gave an update about his condition after the match. He said that he's not too concerned. Today, Jannik was better than him, and then he'll get ready for the next match. Up next for the Canadian is American Ben Shelton, who lost his opening match to Alexander Zverev 6-3, 7-6. Zverev's ankle was a concern, a little bit of a concern heading into this tournament, as he did suffer an injury during his Paris quarterfinal against Dino Medvedev, but it didn't seem to really bother him that much in this match because he was serving fine. He was actually serving exceptional because in the first set he served 88% of first serves in. He won 93% of his points whenever he made the first serve, and he won 100% of his second serve points. Although it was only 2 second serves that he hit, but he still won all the points, or both points, that he where he had to hit a second serve. And Shelton, meanwhile, he just was not hitting his spots well at all on his serve. It was kind of reminiscent of his last match before this one in the Paris quarterfinal against Jannik. And Ben was only 11 points, or he only won 11 points behind his second serve. And maybe he wasn't as confident going for it a little bit much because he just played it a little bit too safe, in my opinion. And Zverev's serving level, it did dip a little bit in the second set, which is understandable because it's just hard to maintain such a high level of serving for the entire match. And this allows Shelton a few more openings, a 30 love opening at one point, some 30 alls, 15 30s, but he just was not able to capitalize. His returning wasn't up to par. And Shelton, he still didn't have it that easy on his service games in the second set, but he was still able to scrape through to force a tiebreak. And here he had a great opportunity to push it to 3 sets because not only did he start off the tiebreak winning the first 4 points, but he had 3 set points leading 6-3. And 2 of those set points were on his own serve. Now, it was just an ugly string of points from Shelton whenever he had a set point. Now, I'll give him some slack on the first set points. Zverev hit a solid backhand return winner, although you could argue that Shelton maybe shouldn't have come in off that serve. It didn't really do as much damage, but still giving credit to Zverev. But on the second set point, it was really ugly because Ben had a sitter inside out forehand, but missed it badly. I think the ball hit the court before he even hit the net. I think maybe he just got a little bit too excited. And on the third set point, the last one, it was on Zverev's serve, but Alex gave him a second serve look. And Ben got into the rally really, really well. And he had another solid inside out forehand look, which he netted. And it's not as bad of a miss, but still at this stage and at this level, you just cannot miss shots like that. Simple as that. And then ultimately Zverev, again, just took the final 2 points to get his first win of these championships. Shelton, unfortunately, I think this match shows that he doesn't have it right now against the best of the best, as he now falls to 0-15 against top 3 opponents. Now, I know it wasn't the best day for him, but I think this match does reveal some issues, some deep issues within the Americans' game. Ben's approach shots, I think, were poorly placed. I don't think that he approached on shots that he really had no business approaching on. And I understand that that's his game, but I think it's also because he didn't have as much confidence or trust in his game from the back of the baseline to just wait and grind it out a little bit more before he had an actual solid opportunity to pass, or to not to pass, but to approach to the net. Because if you're going to approach, especially against someone who hits as solid passing shots as Zverev does, you've got to come harder than what he did at times. Meanwhile, Zverev, I think, showed off his improved transition game wonderfully in this match. I got to give him his 7.5s. But Ben also, he had a really horrible forehand day. He hit way too many unforced errors from that side. And the stats were jarring to me because Ben finished with 6 winners on the forehand side to 17 forehand unforced errors. Meanwhile, Zverev finished with 9 forehand winners to just 5 forehand unforced errors. That is a bad sign if you're Shelton, that Zverev is hitting his forehand that much better than you. That's just not good. But yeah, it looks like we really might be already getting a glimpse at our Final Four, and it looks to be that it's going to be Alcaraz, Fritz, and then Sinner Zverev. I think that De Minaur might have a decent shot if he beats Fritz and Carlos beats Taylor in straight sets. Musetti and Ben's chances look slim, and really so do FAA's chances. I mean, losing to Sinner in straight sets, hate to say it, but that's kind of expected for all the other men in this group. But with that injury, I just don't know. But I am hoping that Alcaraz versus Fritz and De Minaur versus Musetti deliver tomorrow, because the ATP Finals, even last year, you know, it wasn't great because last year we didn't get a 3-set match until the 5th day. And personally, I said even in a video after the finals were done that the finals were boring last year, but it's not a good sign now that we're already getting the ATP Finals are boring and mid complaints after the 2nd day. I can't say that I disagree, honestly. I do think that, for one, the players are tired a little bit, so I think that we can't necessarily expect them to play the best of the best tennis that they have potentially to play. Also, I think that Novak is a big loss for the tournament, not having him play. I think he would have made these matches much more interesting. Also, I think that Jack Draper, if he was healthy, he would have made things more edgy because he's able to better push these top players instead of, you know, De Minaur and Musetti and Shelton. I mean, De Minaur, for example, he's been 1-9 against top 10 players this year, and that one win was against Zverev at the Laver Cup. Shelton already mentioned his horrendous 0-15 record against top 3, but he's 2-8 against the top 10 this year. And then Musetti, his top 10 record isn't as bad, 5-9, but still, he's a weak link, I'd say, in this finals field, especially after he spent a lot of energy in Athens, even trying to qualify. But it's still, on the bright side, it's still early in the tournament, so maybe things will get better, but if they don't get better, I wouldn't be surprised. But ending things on a positive note, Ons Jabeur, 2-time Wimbledon finalist and 3-time Slam finalist overall, announced that she is pregnant and will be giving birth to her first child, a boy, as she and her husband Kareem will be expecting their boy to be brought to the world in April 2026. I'm very happy for Ons. I think that she really needed this, because if you're not aware, of course, Ons, she was very distraught after losing the 2023 Wimbledon final, because she revealed later on that she and her husband were planning on having a child if she had won that match. So she felt that multiple dreams were taken away from her after losing that match. And I think that really it put a lot more pressure on her to try to win a slam and to try to have that baby. And it reflected and translated in her game. She just wasn't playing great tennis, not to mention she was dealing with injuries as well. But I do think that this is what she needed. She needed this. Was clearly what she wanted for a long time, and I do think that if she remains healthy, maybe she still has a shot at winning a slam after she gives birth. That would be one of the best feel-good stories in tennis, period, if she were to do that. And I hope she does. I'm rooting for her. She is 31 years old, and we all know that coming back from having a child is not easy. It's been since 2011 since a mom won a slam title. So it's not going to be easy, but anything's possible. But congratulations to On and Kareem, and I wish them a healthy delivery of their child whenever it comes time to have that child. That is all I have for this video. Let me know, again, your thoughts on the Sabalenka backlash, and if you think that it is warranted, or if you think it is unfair, as well as the ATP Finals, and if you think that it is boring, or if you're pretty entertained with the action thus far. Again, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I make more content throughout these ATP Finals. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support, and I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.